Today on the Football Guys Dynasty Football Show, we're diving into our favorite buys, sells, and holds in the Dynasty format. As we kind of in the middle of the season, you got their middle of the pack teams. When should you go in all in? When do you start selling? So let's give our listeners some buys right now of guys that you want to go try to grab. So we're going to start with Jeff first. Jeff, give me a buy.
Tyjae Spears is my biggest buy right now in Dynasty. He outsnapped Derrick Henry this past week 60-40. And if you watch the Titans, Derrick Henry looks like he's running like a mummy, to be blunt about it. I mean, this is time for Tyjae Spears to take over. He has shown his ability to contribute in the passing game, and I think that his role needs to grow. And the great thing that makes him a buy is that he is yet to have that big explosive game. And you have the sense that as you watch it, that game's just around the corner, that game is coming. And so Tyjae Spears is my top buy currently.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're looking here, to give you guys context for, in terms of what you maybe could go get for Tyjae Spears and what that looks like. So in a 12-team Superflex PPR, he went straight up for these two players. And so Jeff can tell us whether he would do that or not, or depending on kind of, do you like or do you know any deals out there? So he went up for Keaton Mitchell straight up and then Joe Mixon. So are you comfortable with those two deals?
I'm comfortable with the Keaton Mitchell deal straight up. I would have Tyjae Spears over Keaton Mitchell. The Mixon deal, I think, has to be context. If you're pushing for a championship right now, I couldn't imagine trading Joe Mixon for Spears. But at the same time, like if you're rebuilding, it's very hard to get Mixon off your roster if you are in any sort of a rebuild, and you kind of have to take what you can get at that point. And Spears, I think, is a good return in that type of situation.
If you're sitting at like the middle of the pack too, if you have Mixon there and you're like, and you gotta be honest with yourself with your roster. Like if you don't think you can go get it and you're like, points for, you're kind of sitting there, getting Tyjae Spears from Mixon is something I would do, even if you're middle of the pack. Like even if you feel like you're kind of tweener, because maybe Spears kind of goes in at the end of the season, maybe we see some usage and you can plug him and play him a little bit. Because Mixon, yeah, it's impossible. You can't get that guy off. He's probably gonna stay on there, but if you can kind of pivot off of him right now, especially in the middle of the pack, I do like that play. Any take on Spears, Christian?
Good player. I think we kind of hit on that pre-draft, and it was shocking at how quickly he was incorporated into this offense, I think. So I'm interested to see what his work looks like with Levis at quarterback, to be completely honest. I mean, I think that Levis does maybe open up some of this stuff. He didn't look very good this last week, but he might open up some of those things. And I think, the pass catching ability that Spears has could make him one of those league winning type of backs if he sees the volume that I think he can.
Yeah. All right. Give me a buy, Christian. Who are you going out there and getting?
Sam Howell. Sam Howell's my number one buy right now, if only because a lot of people still aren't sold that Sam Howell is going to be the starter next year. I've actually seen a lot of discourse about this on social media over the last couple of days. It's been an up and down season for Howell, but we've kind of seen him progress and get better throughout the year. I mean, in terms of like his time to throw issues and taking all of those sacks, he's really taken, large strides throughout this year. He is currently QB4 on the year. He's averaging like 18.5 points per game. He's coming off a couple of, big performances. But like I said, it's a roller coaster with Howell. This is one where I'm taking the chance that the Commanders are not in a position to go get another quarterback. And I think Howell's shown enough this year that we know he's a starter. And because of that perception that he might not be, he's a clear buy to me because you can get him pretty affordably right now.
My only hesitation on Howell is I think Ron Rivera is going to get fired at the end of the year, and they're going to reset. And maybe it becomes Eric Bieniemy, and maybe he's comfortable with Howell. But if you're stepping into a situation where you're getting a new coach, and Josh Harris, the owner for the Washington Commanders, was the owner for the 76ers during the process, then when they got Ben Simmons, when they got Joel Embiid. So I don't think that the Commanders would have a problem taking out the year if they decide that Sam Howell's not going to be that guy. And so I completely agree that he will be the quarterback going into next year and have every opportunity to solidify that job long term. But I think he's going to be in a situation where he's going to be playing for a coach that didn't select him, potentially in a new system again, potentially in his third new system in 3 years. And so that's kind of my hesitation on Howell.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the risk. That's the risk. I think, yeah. I mean, that's why he could be a buy, but it's risky. Like, I mean, you could give up something and you're like, oh man, I'm holding this bag. I do see like, so according to Tankathon right now, Washington's 11. They're picking 11. They're going to win some games in there. How many games have played the Giants? I don't know off the top of my head. Have they played the Giants yet?
I think
They lost to the Giants once.
That's right.
So
I feel like they're
playing
going to win the second matchup with that. Like they're going to get some games in there where you're looking at, hey, they're probably going to be middle of the pack. They probably will be in typical Washington fashion on the outside looking at the quarterback position. And that is the one. So what you're really looking for is that 1 year. Hey, can you give me another year? And if he can, could he? And to me, a buy right there. So like Sam Howell for a 24 first is pretty common. Like when I was going out there and looking at deals. So if you're a contender, you need that second quarterback. And you're looking at it like, hey, I can get him this year. Go for it. He's a top 6 quarterback right now in fantasy. That's something to know. And he's slinging it around. Like I talked about it being a buy last week or in one of my articles about him maybe going out and get him. I think he had 40 attempts, like 4 straight games or whatever it was. And so, yeah, he's slinging it. And then you're just, hey, next year I'll have him too. So it doesn't necessarily hurt you for draft capital wise. And then next year, if you need that quarterback, would you give up a late first, Christian?
Yeah. And furthering this, counting stats wise, he's leading the league in passing yards and he's 4th in touchdown passes. And sure,
That's
he's
pretty good.
had, yeah, pretty good. I mean, enough to make me believe that whoever comes in will feel comfortable putting him into his system. So yeah, I'll send a late 2024 first. I think I would even be comfortable with like a mid 24 first. Are you? I mean, Brock Bowers for Sam Howell straight up, maybe. Like, I'll take Howell if I'm going for a championship and need a QB2.
Now, did he play 10 games? Can you even compare that to the rest of the league that had a bye? I mean,
you can't. I guess you're right.
So and the other one was Sam Howell, Jacoby Myers for Nico Collins in a 25 first.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still take the Howell side. Here's the thing: if he is the starter, this is risky. I'll throw that out there. I mean, we've kind of talked about the risk, but if he is the starter, 2 years, 3 years down the road, you've won that trade comfortably.
Yeah,
I think. And I know that there is some risk involved, and I think that there will be a time here in the next few weeks where people are maybe convinced that Howell is going to be the guy. And so I think now is the time to go do something like this, especially I know some dynasty leagues have trade deadlines. I think we're approaching those. So I would get one of those deals in if you need a QB2 and you're going for a championship.
All right, I'll go over mine because mine's not a player because I'm a cheater. But I went 25 first, and in general, the reason why I say that is, Jay Stein, he does his analytical article here at Football Guys. He talks about all the time, and he's right. Right now is the cheapest to get 25 first. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I kind of bank in that. One, if there's a middle of the pack team in your dynasty league out there that thinks they kind of have a shot, like, oh, hey, I might get it. They're not going to give up a 24 first. The reason why is because they think that, hey, even if I don't make it this year, whatever piece I add in the 24 class, that's going to give me over the hump next year. So they're kind of thinking, hey, I don't want to give up that. But what they will do is they will give up a 25 first in 2 years because they're like, oh, I'm going to be contender. Whatever piece I get in 24, this class is loaded. And then sometimes what happens is they're an injury away. Their depth isn't there and they overvalue their team. So you might be able to get a 25 first right now. And that could turn as a top 3 pick in the next year's class. And that's one of those things. And then the way I look at 25 first right now, they're the cheapest they'll ever be. But also I do think that, they're only going to accumulate value. So there's just more pieces for you to move them. Like, and when you look at that, I think that people are getting smarter by not selling their first, but I don't think they're getting smarter by not selling the first 2 years out because dynasty managers are they think they're way smarter than everybody else. And they think, oh yeah, this team, I'm just going to keep building and I won't have them there. So here are some deals for 25 first that I found, multiple deals out there. So a 25 first for Tank Dell and a 24 third. Everybody loves Tank Dell right now, and they love the CJ Stroud stuff. But if I can get a 25 first for a 4th round, 3rd round wide receiver that I got, depending on my team roster, I'll do that every single day. 25 first for Romeo Dubs and a 24 third. Again, I don't know who the heck gave up a first for that, but I'd take that. I would go out there and grab the 25 first. Quentin Johnson, a 24 second, a 25 first for Brandon Ayuk. That's a heck of a deal if you're rebuilding. I love Brandon Ayuk. Me and Christian have been huge fans of Brandon Ayuk. I know Jeff liked him too. But if I can get a first back, a second, and then Quentin Johnson, Quentin Johnson, guys, we've been talking about him. He's kind of coming on a little bit. Scored a touchdown last game, so we're seeing that. I like that deal for a rebuilder. Like I do. Generally speaking, I really like that. Mingo and a 25 first for Amari Cooper. If you can get a first for Amari Cooper at this point, I think you have to go do that. And then Mingo's really a throw. I don't really care about Johnson Mingo. I don't think he's a piece. But the 25 first for Cooper, then you take a shot on Mingo. And then the last one was a 25 first for Kenny Pickett and Taysom Hill. Please, if you can do that, take the first. At this point with Taysom Hill, yes. Kenny Pickett, I don't have any faith in. He didn't throw for over 200 yards again, I don't think, last game. To me, from a fantasy perspective, Kenny Pickett's not a guy that I want on my roster. What do you, Jeff, any takes on any of those deals or 25 first in general in your leagues?
No, I think that 25 first, that is a great call out. And I know Jay Stein's been on that and you've been on that as well. And a big piece of that is if you flash back, we all knew that 23 was the Bijan Robinson draft. And even people that weren't up on it knew that that was the Bijan draft and people were tanking all year for that. This year, everybody knows that it's the Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. drafts. And so people are tanking for that. 2025, I mean, you guys are as plugged in as anybody. Who's the name? Like why? What are people
Luther
taking
Burden?
for?
Luther Burden.
Yeah, Luther Burden. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's where it is in terms of. But you have an entire one. That is not going to lose value. That 25 first is not going to lose any value from this point in time moving forward. Two, you have an entire year for those players to establish themselves, to develop, to become the headline for the class next year, and so. Those are our key areas of why to acquire 25 first right now and just the premium, because everybody, unless you are locked in that playoff spot, you still think that you've got a chance of that first that you have this year being Marvin Harrison Jr. or Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, with the 2025 class, there are a ton of potential quarterbacks that could go in the first round to make that 2025 first look really, really nice. The Jalen Milroe is a guy at Alabama that's doing some things that are turning some heads. I mean, I also think Carson Beck, and then that's not even mentioning, I think there are probably 3 wide receivers that will be top 24 guys almost immediately when they enter the league. So that's something to consider. Those names aren't well known. It's Evan Stewart and Ted McMillan, by the way. But I think a lot of, most dynasty managers aren't up on those players right now. So take advantage of that. Good call, Kevin.
All right, let's go through some buys just to kind of wrap this little segment up. We'll go a little bit quicker. Jeff, give me another buy.
Rico Dowdle, and I'm probably saying that name wrong given my video from today.
Dowdle?
But,
Wait, Dowdle?
How is it Dowdle? How do you say it? I don't know. But you're the Cowboys fan, and so it looked like this
Dowdle.
well, but it looked like this week, it looked like you started to see a little bit of a shift that the Cowboys are recognizing, hey, Pollard can't be the every down back. And so we need to figure out a solution here. So if Dowdle moves into like an Ezekiel Elliott type role or an Ezekiel Elliott light type role, that is you're adding potentially a flex, a running back 2 for peanuts right now because, and people might have got onto it a little bit more, but at the same time, people might chalk that up to garbage time this past week. But there were whispers going into that game that was intentional, that they wanted to use Dowdle and Pollard together. And so I think that's a great opportunity. And then if Pollard does miss time, that's a player that can shift leagues right now, given how great that Dallas offense has looked so far this year.
Yeah, Dak Prescott. Yeah, I told you guys.
Good.
He's got some value. Now, so Dowdle, however the hell you say it. It went for a 24 fourth and A.J. Dillon. I mean, I'm okay giving that up in terms of I'm a buyer and I'm going to go try to win it. Like at this point, A.J. Dillon he's A.J. Dillon. And a fourth is a throw-in. Like you go ahead and take that. Christian, any other buys?
I'll just mention one. Michael Mayer seems to be one. His usage has been pretty low, but we've seen the flashes of what he can be, and this reeks of Trey McBride. And in fact, I think they're very similar prospects in that I think that were underrated in how they can get open. I think the situation in Las Vegas right now, this is more like I'm going to buy him, I'm going to throw him on my bench, and I'm going to hope that he lands. But I think a lot of people have moved off of Mayer being a high end asset because we've seen some rookie tight ends doing that. So right now seems like the perfect time to go snag him if you're interested. I think you should be interested. I mean, like I think he scored a touchdown this last week. He's had just like 1 or 2 catches in a few games. He had one decent game, but he's not performing at a high level, which means that he's a pretty good acquisition right now.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I mean, he went for, Michael Mayer in a 4th for Aaron Jones. This might be the last opportunity to get off Aaron Jones at any point of the season. If it's tight end premium, you go take that. And then Michael Mayer for Rashee Rice, I think, is an interesting deal because I really like Rashee. But I guess it really just comes down to the value. I will say this from my personal standpoint. I offered Michael Mayer in a 1st for Andrews in a league, and it got declined. But I tried to get out there. But I thought it was a fair deal, like in terms of the value of it. And it got declined there. But before we move on, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. Comment below with any questions or trades or thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, also make sure to head to footballguys.com/plans to become a premium subscriber. Elite subscribers get custom Dynasty content for less than $15 monthly or $70 annually. We have the best Dynasty content in the fantasy football industry. Join today.
All right, now that we got the buys out of the way, let's go over to some sells. So we're going to be talking about assets that we think you should sell, and we got some spicy ones here for you and some tight ends. We can't talk about enough tight ends. So, Jeff, who is your sell?
Sam LaPorta is my sell. He has been crowned by many the Dynasty tight end 1. And when you look at the Detroit offense, we now have Jahmyr Gibbs growing in importance, growing in role. We have David Montgomery back. We have Jameson Williams, whatever that might be there. And so you're starting to see a fully operational Detroit offense relative to maybe the scaled down version that you did see leading up to this. And so LaPorta is a great opportunity. I mean, personally, I would rather have Dalton Kincaid, and you can call me a homer all you want, but that seems pretty obvious to have Josh Allen's number 2 target moving forward and a player that was drafted above Sam LaPorta. And so the other point, too, to make is that Christian has done a great job of talking about Ben Johnson is going to be a head coach following this year, unless he just completely bombs his interviews. He is going to be a head coach somewhere. And so we don't know what the next iteration of that Detroit Lions offense is going to look like. So this is a great opportunity. I think that it is a sell high opportunity on Sam LaPorta and an opportunity to capture some major value.
Yeah, I mean, he went for LaPorta for Zay Flowers and Kyle Pitts. You still on the Kyle Pitts train?
I mean, that's a lot, especially if you're rebuilding. I don't know. That's a lot to get Zay Flowers and to buy into Kyle Pitts there, because I do think Arthur Smith is probably going to be gone after this year.
Yeah, and then we have another one, and I like this deal a lot. Sam LaPorta and 25 first for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I will take Amon-Ra St. Brown on my roster right there. Like, just way that offense looks, and just I think just if I got to give up a first, that's fine. I'll go tier up and get a dynasty wide receiver 1 for LaPorta, who, when you're looking at his overall finishes, 14, 5, 10, 17 is the last 4 weeks for a guy that's supposed to be tight end 1. I'll go get Amon-Ra, and that's where that value's at. For me, I'm going to say Travis Kelce. And this is because I do think that now this is very, very team dependent. If you're a contender, you probably ride Kelce out. Maybe, but I'm going to give you some deals that maybe you have some production there and you get some assets back for it. I don't think he's done, but I don't think that he's consistently going to be able to give you tight end 1 week in or week out. I think it's more going to be inconsistent. I think that offense is going to have to find a new kind of, you got to find some weapons out there next year at some point. So I think that just to understand what Kelce is, like, if you want to write him off your dynasty rosters, I get it. Like, hey, he's probably produced for you. You probably had him on there for a while, but I wanted to give you guys some context for deals that maybe you could go out there and grab so we can get some assets for. So Kelce for Cade Otton, a 25 first and a 24 second. I don't love the deal, but I don't hate it either. At least you get some draft capital back. I don't think Cade is a big enough piece in terms of what you're looking for at the tight end position. But maybe you can turn and flip some of those other first into something. Kelce for David Njoku, a 25 first and a 24 second. I actually don't hate that deal. I think Njoku has kind of come on. Ever since he had that crazy injury, that dude has just been balling. Him and Watson have that connection. Watson historically has always been really, really good with their tight ends. And we're maybe seeing that connection a little bit. Then you get the added draft capital as well. And so it's kind of a tier down, but you get some added draft capital, and maybe he can put out enough games together where you can contend still. So just kind of depends on how that league and how your team is made up. And then Kelce for Brock Purdy and Evan Ingram, and this is a super flex league. If you need a second quarterback with Brock, I don't love Brock whatsoever. But if you need that second quarterback, plus you get Evan Ingram, and you feel like, hey, that tight end production can come from there. I know that Lawrence and that offense has been down a little bit, but if you need that, it's quarterback. I mean, these are the prices you pay for quarterback. And if Brock's as far down as you can tier to try to get him, I don't hate those deals there. Christian, who is your sell?
Well, first I want to mention with Kelce, it's super important that if you are contending, that is a massive tear down on all three tight ends.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of like points per game this year. I mean, the best one would be David Njoku. No, Evan Ingram at 11 points. So you're losing 6 points a game. If you think that your roster can handle that and you're adding Purdy, that's the deal I like. But if you're a contender, maybe keep Kelce. Okay, my sell. Another older guy that's producing, but we're not sure if it's going to stick for long. Alvin Kamara. We're going to talk about Jay Stein's Dynasty Investor article. He actually downgraded him from a sell to a hold, or from a buy to a hold, maybe. Let me double check. Yeah, he was a buy in his case. Now he's a hold. So now I'm moving him in my Dynasty Investor series on this show right now into sell territory. New segment. That's what's happening right now. But the reason for that being, we saw a very low snap share a couple weeks ago. We're seeing the reception numbers. They're still there. I think this could be the last hurrah. I've kind of taken a look at the contract situation. I think Kamara's probably on the team, but I also think they're going to ask him to take another pay cut, and I don't think he's going to like that. That team is a very strange one because they're very much so a middling team, and I don't think they have a Super Bowl opportunity. I'm not certain that they have a playoffs opportunity, and I don't think that they have a path forward with as bad as the quarterbacks have been for them. So that's right now seems like the perfect time to kind of capitalize on Alvin Kamara's value that I think he's still holding for what it's worth.
Yeah, I love Kamara with Derek Carr at quarterback. I don't know if I love him with Jameis Winston at quarterback. So that's kind of just something to note right now, that I think that Saints quarterback job could be a little bit more up in the air than I think people realize.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part. I mean, Spears has shown his value, and so we've seen that. We've definitely seen that. Yeah, Kamara for a 24 first. It sounds like you do then, right? Because that happens multiple times. Essentially, Kamara's going for a late first, and you'd be okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, can I flip my nearly 30-year-old running back into a 21-year-old running back at some point? Yeah, that sounds kind of nice. Or maybe be smarter and take a wide receiver with that pick. Yeah, that sounds nice.
Yeah, and then this one was interesting. So this was Superflex League. Alvin Kamara got traded straight up for Bryce Young, and people are really down on Bryce Young. And I mean, obviously, that's probably a contender that has Bryce as his QB 3 or 4, maybe, or whatever the case may be. But I'm not selling Bryce Young for Alvin Kamara. Are you guys?
No, nope. Let's get Bryce some real weapons. Let's support him a little bit. I mean, he's a player, and I still believe that.
Yeah, I struggle with that one. And for a little bit of context here, the Kelce one, I did pull up some more deals for today. And here's a good one, maybe if you're really looking at that, like you want more value. He did go for Drake London and a 24 first today. So Kelce for Drake London for first. I know people are down on London. The Falcons suck. Okay, Arthur Smith is like the worst person in the world, and I understand kind of the general speaking there, but that is also for Kelce there. So those are our three. We got LaPorta, we got Kelce, and we have Kamara there as guys that you should sell. And then let's talk about holds. Like we're gonna. I want to mention this because I don't think enough people do. I don't think enough people talk about like, hey, just hold on. We gotta wait and see kind of where they go. We got Jeff's hold, we got mine and Christian. So Jeff, who are you holding in Dynasty right now?
Devon Achane is my hold right now, and I think that we saw you couldn't have had a better debut than what he had coming out. Now he's coming off that injury. Raheem Mostert has really slowed down over the last couple of weeks, and so maybe this is a situation where he claims the lion's share of the backfield. But we might also be scratching the upper limits of what he's capable of carrying in the NFL. The injury that he suffered, wasn't a particularly vicious hit, and so that is one area of concern there. And so I think that it's hard to put him into a sell because I don't know that the excitement bubble is over a little bit. And so to sell him isn't the best time probably in terms of buying. Whoever has him feels like they found gold. And so that I don't know that they're going to give it up. And so that puts him into hold territory for me.
No, I think that's completely fair. I think he's just a really, really tough one there. He did go for Higgins straight up.
I still love T, man. I
I
mean,
know
you
you
know
do.
me. I'm gonna trade a running back that I took in the late first to early second for T all day.
Okay. All right. So I guess player context matters, but holding in general, yeah. I think the one thing his knock was like, will he be able to handle the hits? And he got injured. So that definitely hurt his value because the detractors are going to say, oh, of course he can't hang there. So that is something to know there. My hold was a guy earlier that we talked about. It's Bryce Young. I feel like you got to hold Bryce Young because you're not going to get what you got back for him. Like you probably spent a top 5 super flex pick on him in your rookie drafts unless something crazy happened in your rookie drafts. What his value is right now is not what you're getting back. Your team probably is not contending with Bryce Young. So unless you are really super contending here, like there's a deal right now, Young and a third for Dak Prescott. I love Dak Prescott. That's why I put it on here. And Dak is balling right now. He's a top 5 guy the last two games of the season. But depending on how your roster is built, I would hold for Young because Dak to me is like a win now piece. So it really comes down to that. I still believe in Bryce. I think they got to build that offensive line out. They need to get some more weapons. There's times when they look good. I think the coach could be gone this year. They might have a new whole coaching staff. So there's a lot of things up in the air right now. I am not selling Bryce unless I can get like a top 12 asset. He's still getting valued at quarterback 14, 15 out there. So he's still getting valued in that range. But I'm not selling for that either. So he, to me, is just a standard hold. Anything on Bryce?
If you could package Bryce and a late first for CJ Stroud, would you do it?
Yeah, of course. I would do that right now. I think you have to.
Yeah.
Stroud's just balling.
I think that's still possible in some leagues for what it's worth. I think that I've seen something like that. I don't know if it was a late first. I think it might have been a mid to early first, which gets a little dicey, but I think that maybe float that out there if you are a Bryce Young manager. I don't know.
You're just talking to me because I have 17 shares of Bryce Young.
You're the only one that rosters Bryce, actually.
All right. Go ahead, Christian. Who is your hold?
Christian Kirk is my hold right now. For the time being, Trevor Lawrence getting trashed in the media. He's not performing well. I think that I saw a tweet today about his stats compared to Baker Mayfield's, and it was kind of eye-opening how poor Trevor Lawrence has been statistically. Now, on the film, it's been good, and the one constant in this offense has been Christian Kirk is going to get fantasy points. And I know that down the stretch, I have to imagine that Calvin Ridley is going to be more involved. They're going to figure out a way to open up this offense a little bit. I kind of have faith that that's going to happen. I think it's really easy to want to sell Christian Kirk for maybe even tearing up, maybe tearing down and going and getting maybe a younger guy, maybe a Quentin Johnston is a target of yours. And so you take Kirk and you flip him into that. I'm not really willing to do that because I've seen what Christian Kirk's upside is in this Jaguars offense. And I think that could be a piece past this year too. A lot of people talk about Christian Kirk in 1 year samples because of Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is not on the team next year. And I think Christian Kirk will have a significant role in this Jaguars offense.
I like quite a bit. So that's a good, I think that's the proper way to value him.
Yeah. And the deal that we put in here, Christian Kirk for Devontae Adams, I'm keeping Kirk there. Devontae Adams, honorary sell here. I didn't put him in, but it might be close to time. I think you might be selling low a little bit just based on the last few weeks, but we've seen receivers get old fast. It might be happening right now.
So how are you feeling if you gave up a first and Devonta Chan for Devontae Adams?
Feeling good.
Fine, I guess.
That's a recent Jeff Bell deal. All right. Appreciate you guys tuning in today.
Yeah, and the full version of every show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. So make sure you head over there, check out the Football Guys Dynasty Football Show. Make sure you subscribe, leave us a review. It's been nice getting reviews. I had someone trash my Tua Tagovailoa take in the reviews recently, and that was really cool. So thank you for the review. It was like a 4-star. I appreciate that. So head over there, do that. And I think we're about to get into more prospect previews. So